Sometimes we look back at our lives and see a series of moments that felt random: a missed call, a failed interview, a relationship that didn't last, a path we thought would lead somewhere, but didn't. And in those moments it's easy to feel lost, like maybe we've been forgotten or overlooked. But what if those moments weren't just coincidences? What if they were part of something much bigger, something intentional? See, there comes a time in each of our lives when something shifts, and it doesn't always come with loud announcements or flashing signs. Sometimes it's a whisper in your spirit. Sometimes it's a nudge, a sense that change is near, that something is opening, that this is the moment. But here's the catch: recognizing that moment requires presence. It requires awareness, and most importantly, it requires trust. Because God doesn't open doors when we're fully ready. He opens them when it's time. And His timing doesn't always align with our comfort. Most people miss the door not because it wasn't open, but because they weren't paying attention. We're often waiting for the perfect alignment of emotions, waiting to feel ready, waiting for someone else to confirm it, waiting for the fear to disappear. But that's not how destiny works. That's not how purpose works. The most powerful doors will often look ordinary at first glance. They'll look risky. They'll ask something of you. They'll demand that you trust what you can't see more than what you can. Think about how many times in your life you've looked back and realized, wow, if I had just said yes then, or I didn't even realize what was in front of me. That's the thing: clarity often comes after the moment, not before. But what if this time you didn't miss it? What if this time, instead of waiting for certainty, you responded to the call? Because there's something sacred about divine timing. It doesn't wait on your mood. It doesn't wait on perfect resources. And it definitely doesn't wait on public approval. It comes when it comes. The question is, will you be ready to move when it does? There's someone listening to this right now who's been asking for a sign. Who's been begging for confirmation? Who's been praying for a way out, a way up? Or just a little more strength to hold on? And this is it. Not because I said it, not because it's wrapped in beautiful words, but because deep inside you already know. You've been sensing it. You've felt the shifting. You've felt the discomfort that comes when your current space is no longer where you're meant to stay. And here's something we don't talk about enough sometimes. When God opens a door, it doesn't feel exciting at first. It feels terrifying. Because the door doesn't just invite you in, it calls you out. Out of what's familiar. Out of who you used to be. Out of the version of you that's been playing small, hiding behind excuses, waiting for everything to be perfect. You want a breakthrough. You want a new season. You want to finally walk in purpose. That door you've been praying for is open. But you've got to stop treating it like an option. You've got to stop letting fear drive the car. You've got to stop assuming you'll have time later, because later is not guaranteed. Opportunity doesn't always knock twice. And the most powerful doors don't beg for your attention. They simply open and wait. For a moment. For a decision. For a yes. You might be scared. That's normal. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward in spite of it. So if your heart's racing, if your hands are trembling, if your mind is screaming all the reasons why you're not ready, good. That means it matters. But please don't let this moment pass you by. God is opening a powerful door for you. Don't miss it. Most people don't realize it while they're in it, but the storm you're walking through right now, it's not here to destroy you. It's here to prepare you. We often pray for opportunities, for breakthroughs, for new beginnings, and we expect them to arrive wrapped in ease and clarity and confirmation. But that's not how transformation works. That's not how purpose works. The truth is, the door that's opening for you right now is one you've already been getting ready for, not just for weeks or months, but for years. You just didn't know it. Think about that for a second. Every late night where you doubted yourself but kept going anyway. That wasn't just endurance, that was preparation. Every moment where you were overlooked, where you were passed over, where you questioned your value, those weren't setbacks, they were setups. You were being trained, not publicly, not in front of the applause, but quietly, in the shadows, in the struggle. And that kind of preparation, it's the strongest kind. You're not stepping into this next chapter unarmed. You're stepping into it refined. And here's the problem for most of us: we've learned to associate hard seasons with punishment, with failure, with disqualification. But what if they were the opposite? What if they were proof that you're exactly who God is calling next? See, strength doesn't come from success, it comes from surviving. It comes from enduring when you didn't think you had anything left. It comes from being broken and showing up anyway. That version of you, the one who had nothing left but gave it one more try, that is the version that's ready for this door. And that's why this door is so powerful, because it's not opening for the version of you that wished for it. It's opening for the version of you that bled for it, that cried for it, that lost for it, that sacrificed for it, that kept going when every voice said, just give up. Some of you have been looking at your scars as shame. You've been counting them as reasons you're not worthy of what's next. But what if those scars are your credentials? What if they're not proof of your weakness but proof of your preparation? We all want the reward, but few are willing to walk the path of readiness. Because it's not easy. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come with an audience. But if you've walked through loss, if you've walked through failure, if you've faced rejection, then you've already been through the boot camp that most people avoid. You've already got the muscles that are needed to handle what's coming. And let me tell you something, God doesn't waste pain. There's not a single tear you cried that didn't count. Not a single season of waiting that didn't build something in you. You think nothing was happening, but everything was happening. You were being stretched. You were being sharpened. You were being positioned. Because you cannot carry the weight of a big calling with small character. You can't walk through a divine door without the maturity to handle what's on the other side. And so, your story, the messy parts, the confusing parts, the painful parts, all of it has been building you for this moment. That door you're standing in front of right now, it's not too big for you. It's right size for the version of you who's already been through the fire. You've already proven you're not just a dreamer, you're a fighter. You've already proven that your spirit is bigger than your circumstance. And that's what this moment requires. So, if you're doubting whether you're ready, I want you to look back. Not with regret, but with understanding. Everything that felt like a delay was actually development. Every no that felt like rejection was actually redirection. Every time you wanted to quit and you didn't, you were adding another layer of strength to your foundation. You didn't survive all of that just to stand still now. You didn't walk through all those closed doors just to stop at the open one. You're ready. Even if you don't feel like it, even if your hands are still shaking, even if the wound hasn't fully healed. You've been prepared for this moment, don't miss it. There's a myth we've been sold, and too many of us have bought into it. The idea that when the right opportunity comes, we'll feel confident. We'll feel brave. We'll feel ready. But the truth is, most of the time we don't. Most of the time, when the door finally opens, we're still shaking. We're still overthinking. We're still wondering, why me? And that's why so many people never walk through the very door they prayed for. Because they're waiting for the fear to disappear before they move. But fear doesn't vanish. It just quiets down once you act. Courage isn't about the absence of fear, it's about doing it anyway. We all want a powerful life. We all want impact. We want the breakthrough. But rarely do we talk about what it takes to access that. Because there's always a key, and that key is courage, not talent, not resources, not who you know. Courage is the unlock. It's the access point between you and the door that's standing wide open in front of you right now. And the moment will come, maybe it already has, where you'll stand in front of something that scares you. A move, a risk, a conversation, a decision. And everything in you will want to turn around. You'll try to talk yourself out of it. You'll make it sound reasonable. It's not the right time. Maybe I'll try again later. I don't want to mess this up. But that hesitation, that resistance, that's not your wisdom talking. That's your fear. And if you listen to it long enough, you'll convince yourself that the door isn't really open at all. But it is. The thing about powerful doors is that they never look powerful when you first see them. They usually look inconvenient, uncomfortable. They often come dressed as risk. And because of that, we miss them. Not because we're not capable, but because we let fear sound more convincing than faith. You've got to make a decision. Will fear be your guide, or will courage lead the way? You don't need every step figured out to start walking. That's where most people freeze. They want a guarantee before they commit. But it doesn't work like that. You want certainty. God wants trust. You want a blueprint. He wants belief. You want all the answers. But he just wants your yes, and here's something no one tells you: the most transformative moments in your life will always begin with uncertainty. That leap, that shift, that move, it won't come with confirmation first. It'll come with a whisper. And the ones who walk through the door are the ones who obey the whisper, not the noise. Because the noise will always be their fear, doubt, opinions, what-ifs. And they'll be loud. But courage is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't wait to be invited. It simply shows up when you decide that you're done living small. That's the key, not waiting for the fear to disappear, but deciding you won't let it drive anymore. You've already been prepared. You've already walked through pain and pushed through resistance. Now you're here standing in front of something that's bigger than you, something unfamiliar, and maybe even intimidating. But if it doesn't scare you a little, it's probably not your next level. Growth always comes wrapped in discomfort. Don't disqualify yourself just because you feel afraid. That's not a sign you're unqualified, it's a sign you're human. But what you do with that fear, that's where everything shifts. Do you let it build a wall? Or do you let it become your signal to move? Courage isn't loud. It's not showy. It's not perfect. Courage is often quiet, messy, and unseen. It's the small decision to say yes when everything in you wants to say wait. It's the trembling step forward when your knees are weak but your heart is convicted. It's the choice to believe there's more waiting for you on the other side than what you're clinging to behind you. This moment you're in, it's not random. That door you see, it's not a coincidence. It's been opening slowly, waiting patiently for the version of you who would finally stop waiting for perfect timing and just move. So if you've been waiting for the fear to go away, stop. It's not going to, but if you decide today right now to be brave anyway, you'll find that courage is more than enough to carry you through. Courage is the key. Don't miss it. Fear has a way of sounding reasonable. It disguises itself as logic. It comes dressed as protection. It whispers things like, let's be practical. What if it doesn't work? What if you fail again? And if you're not careful, fear will build a case so convincing you'll start to believe it's wisdom. You'll start to think that playing it safe is the smart move, when really it's just the comfortable one. We don't often realize how many doors we've already walked past, not because they weren't open, but because fear told us not to walk through them. We don't realize how many opportunities we've delayed, because fear disguised itself as timing. Because here's what fear does best: it doesn't slam the door shut. It just slows you down long enough for you to talk yourself out of it. You know what's worse than missing out? Regret. Regret for not trying. Regret for not saying yes. Regret for listening to a voice that never had your best in mind to begin with. Because fear doesn't care about your calling. It only cares about control. Its only mission is to keep you where you are safe, small, stuck. But here's what's true: there's nothing safe about staying stuck. There's nothing protective about silence when you were meant to speak. There's nothing comfortable about ignoring the tug in your spirit. That's not wisdom. That's fear, dressed up and polished. You want to know what favor feels like. It doesn't always feel peaceful. Sometimes it feels risky. Sometimes it feels like stepping into the unknown with shaking hands. Sometimes it feels like obedience without a blueprint. That's favor. That's faith. That's the door God opens, and that door doesn't come with certainty. It comes with purpose. And purpose isn't safe. So many of us have this image that when the right opportunity comes, we'll know it because we'll feel calm and confident. But that's not how favor works. That's not how divine calling shows up. Sometimes it shows up with a lump in your throat. Sometimes it shows up while you're second guessing. Because God is not looking for your confidence, He's looking for your yes. Fear will try to convince you that you're not ready, that you're not worthy, that you'll fail, but favor doesn't consult fear. It's not based on your track record. It's based on who you were created to be. And the door that's opening in your life right now isn't opening because you have it all together. It's opening because it's time. And you get to decide fear or favor. You can't have both. You were never meant to live a small, cautious life. You were built for impact. You were built for transformation. You were built to walk through doors that look impossible and carry grace like armor. You were built for this. But you have to stop letting fear sit at the head of your decision-making table. You have to stop letting it talk you out of what God has already said is yours. Fear says you're not ready. Favor says you're chosen. Fear says play it safe. Favor says walk by faith. Fear says what if you fall? Favor says what if you fly? You get to choose which voice gets the final word. Let's be honest, some of us have been stuck not because we're weak, but because we've been loyal to fear for too long. We've been listening to it, respecting it, letting it lead. And now we're standing in front of something powerful, something sacred, something aligned, and fear is whispering, don't mess it up. But that's the moment you talk back. That's the moment you take authority. That's the moment you say no more. Not this time, not this door. You've already come too far. You've already survived too much. And you're still here, still standing, still called. So don't let the fear that was built in your past stop you from stepping into your future. This door that's opening, it's real. It's divine. And it's not waiting on your fear to leave. It's waiting on your courage to rise. Favor isn't for the fearless, it's for the obedient. And obedience doesn't always feel good, but it always leads to growth. The voice of fear will always be loud, but it doesn't have to be true. You get to choose whose voice matters most. You get to decide which one you'll trust. So when fear says don't move, you look it in the eye and say, watch me, don't miss it. Timing is everything. But the problem is, most of us are looking at time all wrong. We're waiting for the perfect moment. We're waiting for things to calm down, to make sense, to feel aligned. But here's the truth: divine doors don't wait for convenience. They open in alignment with purpose, not your comfort zone. It's easy to say we're ready for something new. It's easy to say I want the breakthrough or I'm ready for the next level. But then the door shows up, and it doesn't come with a spotlight. It doesn't announce itself with clarity and calm. It shows up in the middle of chaos. It shows up while you're still healing. It shows up while you're still doubting, still juggling, still unsure. And you're standing there thinking, this can't be the right time. But what if it is? What if the right time is when you feel the least ready? What if the delay isn't about waiting for a better moment? What if it's about you learning to move in this one? We assume that the timing of opportunity will match the pace of our preparation. But most often, doors don't open when we're comfortable. They open when we're stretched. And that's intentional. Because if every door waited until we felt ready, we'd never move. We'd overthink. We'd analyze. We'd stall. But divine doors don't respond to your feelings, they respond to your faith. There is a door opening for you right now, but it won't stay open forever. That doesn't mean you need to panic. It means you need to be present. You need to stop delaying what you know in your spirit is yours. Because opportunities don't last, not because they vanish, but because we miss the moment. We let fear buy us more time, and that time becomes distance. And eventually, what was once in reach becomes a memory of what could have been. You've got to stop waiting for peace to appear before you move. Because peace isn't always present at the start of something. Sometimes, peace meets you in motion. It finds you when you say yes, not when you stand still. This is why so many people live with regret, not because they didn't have chances, but because they didn't take them. The door opened, but they waited. They hesitated. They tried to figure it out before they took the first step. But life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards alignment. It rewards the person who understands that faith is not about knowing, it's about going. There will never be a perfect time. Not to launch, not to pivot, not to speak, not to heal, not to step into the next thing. But there is a right time. And more often than not, the right time feels inconvenient. It will challenge your schedule. It will interrupt your rhythm. It will disrupt your plans. Because growth is disruptive. But so is stagnation. You have to choose your disruption. Will it be the kind that pulls you forward, or the kind that holds you back? Let me ask you something. What have you been putting off? Not because you're not ready, but because the timing doesn't feel ideal? What have you talked yourself out of? Not because you don't want it, but because you're afraid of the risk. You already know what the door looks like. It's been showing up in your spirit. It's been tugging at your thoughts. It's been showing up in your prayers, in your conversations, in your restlessness. You know it's there. And now the question isn't if you're called, the question is when will you move? Time isn't just ticking, it's talking. It's asking, will you trust what you've been shown? Or will you keep asking for more signs while the moment passes? Don't wait so long analyzing the opportunity that you miss it completely. There's a divine urgency to some doors. Not panic. Not pressure. But purpose. You weren't meant to stay in preparation mode forever. There's a point where you've got to shift from readiness to movement. And that point for some of you is right now. You don't talk yourself into delay. Don't wait for perfect. Don't let the right moment rob you of this moment. If the door is open, the time is now. Don't miss it. You know what's fascinating about the doors we've been talking about? The ones that feel too big, too scary, too soon. It's that they don't open in isolation. They're not just about you. The truth is, when a powerful door opens for your life, it rarely just changes your life, it starts a ripple. It creates movement. It opens doors for others, sometimes people you've never even met yet. That's why it matters so much that you don't miss it. Because your obedience isn't only about you. It's about everyone connected to your purpose. We tend to think the choices we make are contained. That saying no, hesitating, holding back will just impact us and no one else. But the longer you live, the more you realize that purpose is never isolated. You were designed to be a bridge. You were built to open a path. And the door God's opening for you, it's going to bless more people than you think. You're just the first one that has to walk through it. We don't talk about this enough. We focus on what we'll get out of the opportunity, how it'll feel, how it'll stretch us, what we'll learn. And that's important. But what if the biggest win isn't what you receive, but what you release? Because the moment you step into alignment with your calling, your courage gives someone else permission to do the same. Your breakthrough becomes someone else's blueprint. And your yes, it echoes. It inspires. It ignites. That's the power of divine doors. They're not just access points, they're assignments. And when you fulfill yours, someone else gets to move forward. That's what legacy really is. It's not about how far you go. It's about how many people can move because you did. You might not even realize how many people are waiting for your obedience. Waiting to hear the words you've been afraid to speak. Waiting to see the vision you've been sitting on. Waiting to follow a path you've been too scared to pave. And maybe you don't feel qualified to be a leader. Maybe you don't feel worthy of that kind of influence. But you're already leading. Just by existing. Just by showing up every day and choosing courage. Someone is always watching. Always learning. Always catching fire from your light. And that's not pressure, that's purpose. So when you choose fear, when you delay, when you sit on the edge of the door that's been opened, it's not just you that stays stuck. You stop the flow, you pause the movement. But when you choose boldness, when you decide to walk through, even trembling, you activate something bigger than you'll ever understand. That's the weight and wonder of stepping through the right door. It's not a solo win. It's a multiplication. Your step becomes someone else's momentum. Your breakthrough becomes someone else's confirmation. Your story becomes someone else's survival guide. We spend so much time wondering if we're ready, if we're good enough, if we have what it takes, but what if the question isn't about readiness? What if the question is about responsibility? What if the opportunity you've been given is less about earning it and more about honoring it? You were chosen for a reason, not because you're perfect, not because you have it all figured out, but because you have the heart to carry what's coming. You have the voice, the hands, the story, the strength that someone else needs to see in motion. And when you step forward, you make room for others, you make a way. So don't downplay what's in front of you. But don't shrink to fit someone else's comfort. Don't waste time overthinking what's already yours. Walk through the door, not just for yourself, but for the ones coming after you. This moment isn't just about your future, it's about the futures tied to you. Don't miss it.